universal language and love the key to brotherhood and peace and understanding, to living in harmony.
This LP, in many ways, is a tribute to all musicians in the world. It is a salute to the native music and song of Ireland, which are loved and practiced by so many people. Mar sin, be a Dana Fiol.
All right, Mild Sauce Live. Back again, Saturday afternoon. This Saturday afternoon's a little special one. The river's been dyed green. The bagpipes are blaring on the street. The green beer is flowing. And the drunk blonde girls are stumbling down the streets. So you know it's Chicago St. Patrick's Day.
It is a Chicago St. Patrick's Day indeed. This is the Steve Breit Rock Discovery Show. I am the ominous voice in the background, Jake Krez, chatting along with Steve Breit. We take every Saturday afternoon for a couple hours to bring you guys some new rock from in and around the city and beyond. This week we have the Irish Rock edition. I don't know what the hell we're calling it.
Yeah.
We're not great at names, ironically enough, but some Irish rock right down the street at Emmett's. They are going absolutely horseshit crazy since about 9 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
It's a scary day to be in Chicago.
It's a scary day if you're driving. It's a good day if you're drinking.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could be a scary day if you're drinking too, depending on like where and when. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's. I think it's gonna get rowdier as the sun goes down. So,
Yeah,
but I was thinking about it on my way in, and this is like one of those weird, rare like day drinking holidays. You know, where it's not a question to start pounding down at like 9 in the morning.
Well, it's really funny because you say that. I was getting an Uber here this morning, and the Uber driver was like, he was Chinese. Like he even said, like on the way, he's like, "I'm from China. I don't get this holiday." He's like, "Are you drinking?" And I was like, "No," which will get us to another point I was going to bring up later. But like, he was like, "Are you drinking?" I was like, "No." He was like, I was like, "I'm going to this thing," and he's like, "What is this holiday?" And I was just like, "Oh, you just get drunk all day." That's kind of it. Like I've never said that to somebody before.
Yeah.
'Cause I didn't have to
explaining it.
And he was just like, "Huh?" And I was like, you know, like Korea or China has like a holiday like that around Christmas time where it's like the most booze is drank.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I forget what the holiday is. It's somewhere around Christmas time in like one of those Asian. Sorry, I'm like very all over the map at this. But I was like trying to like relate it to him to that. And he didn't get it. He was like, "This is the weirdest shit I've ever seen." Like.
Well, you know, being in Chicago, he's going to have to get used to it. I mean, I think that, you know, it's big in America everywhere, but there's certain hot spots, Boston, Chicago, New York.
Even as like a fully bred white person, I wouldn't want to go to Boston for St. Patrick's Day. That scares the shit out of me. I've seen the Southside Irish Parade. That's enough.
Right.
I was there that last year, like watching 15-year-old girls chug bottles of Jack Daniels in a like Mr. Submarine parking lot. That's not even a joke. I didn't make that up. That was a real thing that happened. But yeah, I've seen the Southside Irish Parade enough times, and the year they canceled it when all the cops were getting beat up and shit. Like, I don't. Boston's got to be scary as hell today.
Yeah, that's just a neighborhood's party.
Yeah, right. I know. It's like that neighborhood is kind of like all of Boston too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Shout out Boston.
Yeah, much love to Boston. We'll be getting to Boston actually in a little bit, which is a good segue. So, because this is St. Patrick's Day, you know, I didn't want to go that standard route of what you normally assume to be like Irish music. I wanted to, you know, this is a rock discovery show, so I wanted to bring out different aspects like in and around the island and around America. So, you know, we're not going to be listening to any like Cranberries or Dubliners or Enya or Hot House Flowers and especially no Van Morrison.
Oh, but I know you got a lot of U2 in there.
Yeah, no Sinead O'Connor, no Saw Doctors, especially no U2.
Man, we all know deep down you're a U2 fan.
Oh, my God.
If you guys ever wanted to see Steve just like poof into dust in front of your eyes.
Yeah, you know, it's just not my bag. But to that point, you know, I wanted to kind of really get the different aspects of Irish music. You know, stuff that, you know, you hear Irish music and you assume, you know, certain stuff. And I wanted to kind of bring a different spectrum and a different perspective for this week. So
Absolutely. And, as you say that, I kind of had a thought come to my head, and it was that Irish music, as the people you just went through, and then what I know of Irish music growing up and stuff, I never realized this before I had this thought, but it seems like Irish music is either really happy or super angry, and nowhere in between.
yeah, right.
I just realized that, like, you said Sinead O'Connor, U2, and then, like, you have, like, Flogging Molly and people. I'm like, where's the middle ground? Like,
Right.
Irish are a people of extremes.
Yeah, Ireland is a nation of passionate people.
Yeah. Passionately mad, passionately happy.
Mm-hmm. And that's a funny reality. Obviously this is St. Patrick's Day. There are Irish celebrations, Gaelic celebrations all over the city, and it's always hilarious to go to like a really traditional, hardcore, Irish, authentic festival, because you're going to have the kids, you're going to have the families. It's going to be a big, rowdy celebration, but you're going to be pounding beers like a fool. And then if you actually, like, pay attention and listen to the lyrics of half of the bands that they bring into play, I mean, it's very, like, fuck the British. I mean, it's very
it's either, like,
aggressive.
fuck the British, or it's like, my grandmother died to the northern, you know what I mean? Like, but it's like a happy song about, like, him and his, like, 4 brothers, like, going to fight, like, the Northern Irish and shit. Like, yeah, I personally grew up, like, in an Irish pub called McNally's out in the suburbs. That was, like, my best friend's dad's pub, and we were there, like, they had, like, a clan of, like, 50 of them. I think they took over the town maybe now.
Yeah.
Shout out to McMahon's and McNally's out in St. Charles. But they had all their cousins and uncles and aunts out there. They actually started the St. Charles. I'm suburbanizing myself at the moment, so sorry, guys. But yeah, they started like the parade out there for the Irish parade and stuff. So they were like really about it, and they had a big green pub that looked like the guy was like an old carpenter from Ireland.
Yeah.
Who made everything look like old Irish cottages. So it was just like a real heady. So I grew up with that. I was like the Polish kid that had no Irish in him. it was like, all right, guys, I guess this is cool. But yeah, everyone was just getting shit faced, and we'd be like the little kids running around the bar,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And if we're throwing down our suburban bar bona fides, I think it still exists. There's a Irish bar on about 65th near Cicero, just south of Midway Airport. It was the first Irish bar I ever stepped foot in. It's called Vaughn's. Shout out to Vaughn's if it's still around.
Okay. Yeah.
And then growing up, we actually touched on this in a previous episode. When I was of early drinking age, I was down at T Hands in Tinley Park, and that's
that story from a few weeks ago.
Shout out from the Tossers, and again, Chicago connection. We might be hearing from them a little bit later on today.
Yeah, man, you really bring this all the way around.
I had to, this is the Irish Day. Chicago being such a big, influence with that Irish culture, in the music. I had to bring a little bit of a Chicago connection. So it's tenuous threads this week, but we still have them.
It's always tenuous with you, man. But we get it done. It finds a way to get weaved through.
Yep, we make it work. But
on that point.
So, get to the beer. This week's beer, it is not a Chicago beer, but it is appropriate for the day. So we are drinking Magic Hat Brewing's Barroom Hero Pub Ale. This is a special collab by Magic Hat and the band Dropkick Murphys. And proceeds from this beer go to their charity. And it is I have it all written down. It's crap. I totally didn't write it down. But proceeds go to a charity. It's a very good charity. It's a very good beer. It's smooth. It's like a 4.2. It's a nice smooth drinker. It's creamy. It's sweet. I dig it. What are you thinking about it?
Actually, it's pretty good. The last few you brought, you've been hitting me with some saisons and some pale ales. And
Yeah, we were heavy on the hops last week.
I know, and I can't do that, so I've been struggling the last couple weeks. But this one's much more my speed. The pub ale.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a smooth drinking person. Like when I was a young lad, I was drinking like the IPAs and stuff, but I'm getting old and my body just doesn't fuck with it anymore. So
You don't feel like chewing your beer?
No, man. I go with the cheaper the beer, the better for me now. But this one's like a nice beer that still kind of maintains that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. Like when a beer gets more expensive, it's gotta be harder to drink. Like why can't you make like just a good, easy drinking beer?
Yeah.
I remember when Chance made we teamed up with Goose Island and made the blue collar ale or beer or whatever it was called.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the whole point. They wanted to make like a good beer that was brewed at a nice brewery, but it was like easy to drink and kind of cheap.
Yeah.
I think people are overthinking it. But this one's dope. I really enjoyed this. I didn't know it was, you said it was Dropkick Murphys did this?
Yeah, so it's a collab between Magic Hat and Dropkick Murphys. Magic Hat is out of Burlington, Vermont, but really good stuff. And like I said,
Great
it's
artwork, too.
Yeah, great artwork, and there's not many opportunities for you to feel good about what you're drinking. So proceeds of this beer go to a good cause.
There you go. Yeah, that's the other side. It's all for charity. For the kids.
Yep. And that leads us to our regular little segment, the what am I wearing this week? So
well, I mean, this week you undersold yourself right there because low key, the beer now is the shirt. You've now melded the two things.
I know, unity.
Segue like a motherfucker. All right.
So this is Dropkick Murphys. I had to dig this one out of retirement, because this was St. Patrick's Day. I was like scratching around, going, what shirt am I going to pull out this week? So this one kind of came out of retirement. This is from their 1999 tour.
Okay. Me and Don were 9 at the time.
Yeah, so that one's going way back to another fucking
well, you were just
century.
digging in, your grandma's basement too because it flooded, or your mom's basement, excuse me. You said, was that one of the things you pulled out of the basement last week?
This was not, but this was one that had my mom's basement not flooded. It was probably heading in that direction for the long-term storage at mom's house.
Yeah, Steve had a little bit of a debacle a couple weeks ago. Saved some stuff, lost some stuff, but his records were tampered with for a moment.
Yeah, that's the beauty of living in the suburbs. But that brings us to the next song. So, like we have, synergy with fucking St. Pat's Day. We're going to listen to Barroom Hero by Dropkick Murphys and then get into a little bit of some old school punk.
Face down in the gutter, won't admit defeat. Those clothes are soiled and black. He's a big, strong man with a child's mind. Don't you take his booze away. Hey! Drinking balls and bears is a heritage most teammates. Inside he cries back swollen eyes. This man is shed no tears. Now it's like that kids in a different zone as they worry about their dad who died. This arrogant fool makes every move be nothing but pride and juice. Hey, listen, no, he won't pencil shake on a page before the daylight shines. But the thoughts and prayers of an alien's gone. Keep this man from dying. But hey, listen, no, we won't pencil shake on a page before the daylight shines. But the thoughts and prayers of an alien's gone. Keep this man from dying. So mention in the bar with every scar, bunch of thousand bigger men. We fight and losers got all the bruises, no some of these left in. The Irish fool's got a big, big body, keeps climbing back into the ring. The low-down surface where he holds his court, this man who once was king. But hey, listen, no, we won't pencil shake on a page before the daylight shines. Cause the thoughts and prayers of aliens might keep this fool from dying. But hey, listen, no, we won't pencil shake on a page before the daylight shines. Cause the thoughts and prayers of aliens might keep this fool from dying. This one goes out to the Boston Punch and Skins. A rowdy bunch they are. This one goes out to everyone at 656 Adams Street. How you doing, fellas?
But I'm not even like tripping like I think something has to.
This one goes out to Connie Gibbons, Alvin McGilvey, and Jimmy Logan, the Barroom Heroes, who are no longer with us. And last but not least, this one goes out to Billy Taylor, Walter Gladden, Priscilla, and the other guys that don't have to wind up on the barroom floor. Remember again. Isolation in the bar with every scar, but a thousand bigger men. Fights and losers got all the bruises, for some of these heavy. The Irish fool's got a red bit that he keeps running back into the ring. And the low-down surface where he holds his court, this man who once was king. before the daylight shine. Just a thoughts and brain of a million's born. Keep this fool from dying. Hey, listen, now we won't let soul shake for the day just before the daylight shine. Just a thoughts and brain of a million's born. Keep this fool from dying.
There you go. Perfect. All right, Mild Sauce, St. Patrick's Day, Chicago, live. So we're back. I didn't give a shout out to that first track we heard at the top of the episode. That was Deviant and Naive Ted out of Limerick, Ireland. That was a track called Oh Gravity off of the Send in the Hounds EP. Then we jumped into Barroom Heroes from Dropkick Murphys. That's a classic track off of Do or Die. And then the last track we just heard, Belfast, Ireland's very own Stiff Little Fingers with the classic punk standard alternative Ulster.
Yeah, and Belfast has to be a place where punk music took a lot of root. I mean, it's like whenever I think of the punk movement in England and Britain that happened in the 60s and 70s and whatnot, or early 80s, like I can't help but think what was going on in Belfast had to be like way crazier. Just because generally the people I've met from Belfast are absolutely batshit crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's Northern Ireland and,
right.
Protestant country. And, it's funny. Being a Southside Irish, it's not uncommon to hear the old adage of 26 plus 6 equals 1, which is the Southside or the Southern Irish's kind of, come back to us.
Yeah.
So there's definitely that tension of the North and the South and the desire for reunification, but you always get extremes on both ends. But
yeah, I mean, the people I grew up with were from Armagh, which I always say wrong, so excuse me if I pronounce that wrong. But they were like right in the middle of that, and like they have stories like their brothers getting pulled out of beds in the middle of the night, never seen them again, stuff like that. So it's a real thing. But like music usually the greatest art usually comes out of the greatest calamities in the history, and
Yeah.
I think that's maybe why you saw a lot of great Irish bands come out of that time. That's why like a U2 came out.
Yeah.
And as much as we're not going to spend
during
any
the
time
struggle and all
talking
that,
about
yeah.
them and like but you could see like why a band like that would come out. Why a guy like Chance the Rapper would come out of a place like Chicago. You know what I mean? Like positivity comes out of places with a lot of negativity. So that being said,
Yeah, absolutely.
that's not really what I think we're looking at with the Belfast punk scene.
I think, to me at least, Stiff Little Fingers is my definitive Northern Irish band, and you can catch some of that energy and that tension out of their releases.
What about them makes them your quintessential? Like, is there something that...
I think a little bit in distance, you know what I mean? Like, I've never been to Ireland. My sister had an opportunity to study abroad over there, so she had... I live vicariously through her, but...
over there, man.
Talking to family that's been over there, they say that, you tour the Southern Irish countryside and everybody's very welcoming. And, what family are you from? And you go up into Belfast and people are a little bit more closed off and a little bit more stilted,
Well, it just makes sense in a place that's been war-torn for so long.
Exactly.
I'm
and
sure.
I think that's going to be a mindset that you're going to run into in such a volatile state of mind with people. But
Well, like Canadians are different than Iraqis, a little bit, just based on like things they've had to go through.
yeah, but speaking of Canadians, when we had been touring, I did a road trip last year up and through Canada, talking to people about different music scenes as we run around, and talking to some punks in Toronto, getting their take on the punk scene in Canada. They were like, yeah, the craziest punk comes out of Victoria, Ontario.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, Victoria, which is a small island north of Washington State, where, according to them, it's a retirement community. It's a very,
Right. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's a beautiful place. I've been up there before, and the guys that we were talking about in Toronto, Toronto's a pretty blue collar, working class punk town, and they were like, yeah, the hardest shit comes out of fucking Victoria. Think about like the Dayglow abortions. They're really violent, really angry, really pissed off, and it's because they're stuck living with a bunch of old people.
Yeah, I guess it's like why everyone's so angsty down in Florida.
Right. Yeah, you get some good stuff out of Florida too. There's definitely something to be said about that. But speaking about Stiff Little Fingers, I wanted to bring it up because I thought it was a nice little Chicago connection. They are personally big fans with local natives Naked Ray Gun, so that's like a nice little interplay back and forth. Naked Ray Gun's a great working class Chicago punk band that fits the aesthetic with Stiff Little Fingers. So
been around for a long time as well. And you were saying that they've actually like collaborated or like worked, like played some songs of each other's over the years and stuff like that. So it's not just like a appreciation; it's actually like somewhat of a working relationship, not like a working appreciation. That's what I was trying to say.
It's similar music, similar bands, but definitely Ray Gun was inspired by the intensity of Stiff Little Fingers.
Oh, so they're actually like an influence rather than just like that's interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And, I think just always trying to get those Chicago connections in, and, we might check out a little bit of Ray Gun later. I've been trying to work that Chicago connection into this week's episode, and we might hear some of that. But moving on to our next couple of tracks, speaking about Irish music and wanting to be non-traditional, I wanted to shift things around. So the next couple of tracks we're going to hear are some Irish hip-hop. So we're going to be checking out some a band, artist called Kojak, and then we're going to be checking out another band called Jar Jar Jr. Both of them are out of Dublin. They're both on the Soft World label. It's pretty interesting stuff. I look forward to getting your take on this stylistic after we come back.
This is a veer off, an off ramp for the Steve Breit Rock Discovery show.
Yeah, a little bit. Stepping into murky waters where Jake's expertise will come into play. But like I said, I wanted to give a wide berth. So we're going to get a couple of hip-hop. We're going to get some indie later. We're going to get a little bit more on that music spectrum.
Dope. Let's check it out.
Cool.
Came aim for the crack, left for the cause of the disgrace on my back. Girls and the crits keep writing me off, but I never do learn, just change the attack. Met her after the show, came with a man but he left for the blow. Both do lines but a different swing minds. He left with the boys while I'm curling the toes. Didn't even make it to the bed, fucked on the stairs, got a price on my head. Man's real mean but she keeps his green. Put a gram in my sock then I left her for dead. It's funny how the mood changed lately. Wanna tell me how you get my job done? Wanna tell me what you think, that's gravy. Opinions like an asshole, everybody's got one. Yeah, everybody's got one. Everybody's got one. That stinks. Man, everybody's got one. When I get real brave in the blogs, when I say my name in the comments, hard to write with your arms ripped off, get ripped apart on my show, that's a promise. Got chicks to spare on my show, that's a promise. Doesn't matter about the clothes that you wear, he's a promise. Come to the show with your girl, if I'm honest, she be screaming my name in your foot, that's a promise. Each show's like a bloodbath, spill guts on the stage when I come down. Sweep jaws at the floor, how I done that shit, I'm a kid, try this, blow your lung out. Try this, blow a lung out. Try this, blow a lung out. I don't just fuck 'em, I pick the grave that they rest in. You come to spar with a giant on pussyfoot, this ain't wrestling. Fuck it, I'm evil, go toe to toe with your people. Go colder with every show, fuck you over, here comes the sequel. Show to the show with the balaclava, only wrap around with a balayage. This rap's just a front for my true career, I'm a pretty boy, really think I gangsta rap? How much you gonna charge for that? Alright, sound, swap a pound of this. Marching like the man with the sergeant cap. Watch the hand on your back with the necklace. Got these kids asking who produced the beat. Told me you can find out where the groupies be. Mother want me not to drink the bed so quick, so I let him take time when undressing me. Yeah, my mother want me not to drink the bed so quick, so I let him take time when undressing me.
Water, soda, the bottles for $2. Coca-Cola came and bought it for beans. What the fuck? Have a baby by me, baby. Be a millionaire, I write the check before the baby comes. Who the fuck cares? I'm stankin' rich. I'ma die trying to spin this shit. Southside's up in this bitch. Yeah, I smell like the boat. I used to sell dope. I did play the block, now I play on boats. In the south of France, baby. Sandro Pay, get a tan, I'm already black. Rich, I'm already that. Gangster, get a gap. Hit a head in the hat. Call that a riddle rap. Shit, fuck the shit, trying to bake the bread. A barber, I cut your head. A marksman, I spread a lead. I blood, chocolate. Not fuck with the kid. I get pissed with the cig, I come where you live. You dig? I get it. I get it. Yeah. I run New York. I get it. I get it. Yeah. I run New York. Call this my new shit, but it ain't new though. I got rid of my old bitch. Now I got new hoes. First it was the Benzo, now I'm in the Enzo. Ferrari, I'm sorry, I keep blowing up. They call me the cake man, the strawberry shake man. I spray the AR, make your whole clique break dance. Backspin, head spin, flatline your head in. 9 shells, bad 10. Who wanna get it crackin'? I was young, I couldn't do good. Now I can't do bad. I ride back the new Jag, I just bought a new Jag. Now nigga, why you mad? Oh, you can't do that? I'm so forgetful. They calling me cocky. I come about the jeweler, they calling me Rocky. It's the ice on my neck, man, the wrist in my left hand. Bling like blow, you like my style. I'm headed to the bank right now. I get it. I get it. Yeah. I run New York. I get it. I get it. Yeah. I run New York.
We're back. Loud Sauce Live, Saturdays. St. Patrick's Day edition today. So
dope. It was weird that he said, I run New York at the end of that.
Yeah, a little bit of weirdness, but I wanted to try and bring a little bit of differentiation, and, it's interesting being American, and obviously the birthplace of hip hop, it's interesting to hear like hip hop in foreign lands and listening to, that first track from Kojak, and you're getting his Irish brogue in his flow, which is, not something you hear every day.
Well, I think that's cool about it. The genre of hip hop, zooming out to like a very abstract or like high key lens is like, it's just the ability to show who you are through speech almost. So like it makes sense that like, Irish music would have such like a, thick accents to it. That's kind of dope.
And I think it's very cool, and I like hearing stuff, like when you hear like, Japanese hip hop, or I have, oddly enough, I have a bunch of like French hip hop or Nigerian, African of French, speaking language hip hop, and listening to French stuff is crazy, and listening to Japanese and then the Irish.
It is weird because it's like the certain languages have like certain ways that they play with like language, even like the intonations of words. Or like,
and sentence structure differs.
Yeah, so it is interesting. Like I've listened to a lot of the same stuff you're talking about. It's like not the same stuff, but like French rap specifically. And it's like like they'll go on like. It's just like the way their language is structured. They like hit these flows that like an English rapper couldn't really hit because it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like, and that's always cool. But this was dope. It's what I think is interesting is when you see places like Ireland, for instance, and like when you and I were like looking through Canada. I mean, Canada's a little different because of Drake and everything that's been happening up there, Kate Tronada, but. When you go to other places, I think it's funny because they're always like a few years behind. Yeah. And that's not to like bash them. That's not like saying like, oh, you guys don't know what's cool. No, it's more so like boom bap will forever be big everywhere in the world, right? And it's not gonna, it always peak and valley out with like, depending on who pops up at what point and whatnot, but. It'll always be like, it's kind of like that classic rock sound for rock, boom bap hip hop will always be around. And it's funny when you like hear a kid from Ireland rapping over a boom bap beat, it's just like in 2018, it's just like, it's interesting because it shows that like, unlike a lot of the artists that we have coming up in America right now, there are people around the country and the world who like value the lineage of hip hop that's always been so like, taught and respected throughout the generations and stuff.
Yeah, and I think, to give Kojak a little bit of credit, I think this is not like the most recent album. So I think it's from a couple of years back. But, you're absolutely right. And it's interesting to see how style travels across the country, across the world, and the speed, the farther along in this digital era that we get, the quicker it moves, But you could see it in Chicago, you know what I mean? Like, the tastemakers, for better or worse, are on the coasts, New York, L.A., and then it bleeds in, and stuff.
We're working against that.
Chicago definitely has its foot in the ground in a lot of different styles, but, you see greater culture, and it bleeds in from the coasts and then comes back.
Well, and that is true, and that is funny, but I think, like, it's one of those things where, like, and I'm not trying to get deep on this subject, but like it's what you just hit a point with me. It's like it's one of those things where like people say that all the time, and they like East Coasters try to act like the coastal elite is a thing. Like nobody in Chicago cares, and it's like, and I think that's the thing. Like there's a whole thing on the 3-piece last week, and we talked about it on like the Backcourt too, I think, and it was all about like some guy was tweeting, and like the show Atlanta had like a ton of Chicago slang words in it. And they were saying shit like, and if you remember, like when On Fleek got big a few years ago, that was like some 15-year-old girl on the south side of Chicago who put a video up on Instagram or YouTube or something. And so, like, yes, I think all these people on the coast have some influence, but I think that they tend to look here for what's cool and then go to the coast and be like, oh, I'm the first person to do this. When in reality, there's some like 12-year-old from Chicago that's way hotter than them. You know what I mean? Yeah. So. That was my little 2 cents off the chest. Like I would ever hear coastal elite. It's just like, man, get the hell out of here with that goofy shit. Like the country's been around for long enough. We don't need coastal elites. We got the internet. And shit.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's interesting because even if you look at it from, you see stuff going on in Chicago, and then go down to like St. Louis, and it hasn't like picked up yet.
I mean, look at like Chief Keef, and then look at Extentation. And every Florida rapper who watched all the Chicago rappers do what they did with a conscience and then put tattoos on their face and did the same shit. Like, I just love being from Chicago because we always have a chip on our shoulder.
Yeah.
Like being called the second city or whatever else you want to call us. And like, especially in this music thing right now, I just think like, you know, like we started rock. Like blues came here to become a thing, you know, like we brought soul back to rap in the last few years, you know, like I think there, you know, the whole like pop punk, post-punk thing happened here. I think like, you know, hard metal happened here, like the Rolling Stones happened here. You know what I mean? It's like, I just think like other places are so quick to put their name on it because that's where the office that the deal got signed in was,
Yeah.
you know, the studios or whatever else that, you know, where the culture was. I think it's always been here.
You know, that's the beauty of, you know, Chicago. And again, we come back to that theme all the time on this show. And, you know, we have that ability to have just great music on hand, eclectic styles, and it's just ubiquitous. You know what I mean? We get used to it. It's just, that's how it is in the city.
And you forget that, like in New York, there aren't bands.
Yeah.
Like, no offense to New York, but like, I've managed a band. We had to find an opening band, and like you call up people, and they're like, "Nah, man, you can't really have a 5-piece band in New York." You know, ignorance from Chicago. Like, oh, why? Because rent sucks. You know, like because like in Chicago, you could have a house and have like a band and have like a rehearsal space and all these things, and still pay your rent and work a minimum wage job.
Right.
That's not the case in New York. It's not the case in like other places. So I think like, as much as like people always want to make a big deal about New York and LA, it's like I've been just fine being here, man.
Yeah, it's definitely comfortable here. And on that note, let's jump back into some music. So shifting gears, like I said, we listened to a little bit of hip hop. Now we're gonna get into some indie that I think is pretty fun. First band we're gonna hear, again, shifting out of Dublin, where the last couple of artists were from. We're going into Limerick with a band called Pow Pig. Track was called Birds of Paradise, and it's on their Denture Adventure EP.
Dope. Let's check it out.
Wild Sauce live Saturday, St. Patrick's Day. So jumped out of that hip hop groove, got into some indie stuff. So we heard some new and old. I thought that was pretty interesting. So first track was Pow Pig, this badass all-girl setup from Limerick. Then we shifted over to Cork, Ireland, to hear Sunshine Factory with Exploding Head. Really interesting indie groove to it. And then what I thought was a little bit of a precursor and inspiration for that Sunshine Factory song. The last song we heard was My Bloody Valentine Sometimes from their 1988 or 89 album Loveless. You know, it's a seminal shoegaze classic. I think defines the genre.
Yeah, and you were just educating me on the fact that that record that we just heard damn near bankrupted the whole.
Yeah, it didn't damn near. It did.
Oh, it actually did.
Yeah,
okay.
The label went out of business for the release of My Bloody Valentine's Loveless.
So, like, how do you come back from that?
Well, you know, the label didn't.
The label just never came back from that.
But the band, you know, they persevered on. And, you know, they're, like I said, well, we were talking off air, you know, these guys, to me at least, are a seminal ground floor influential band in the British shoegaze genre. You know, My Bloody Valentine inspires, you know, Blur and Oasis, and, you know, Blur, Damon Albarn, that's Gorillaz. So like that's an influence that carries, you know, across the century and into, you know,
across like decades and decades.
Yeah, I mean, it's 21st century, and then, you know, you're still getting some of that vibe off of brand new Gorillaz stuff. You know,
that's really cool, actually. Yeah, it's Steve is here to draw these lines from back then to now.
Yeah, you know, but My Bloody Valentine, to me, might be one of my absolute favorite Irish bands. And as terrible as it is, like, I love the album Loveless so much. It's like, that's all you need from that band. You know?
Well, you said they've only put out, how many albums have they?
I think 5, maybe. They put out, this Loveless was their second album. They had one before. Then, because of the bankrupting of the label, I think they kind of
might make it hard to get another deal.
They went away for a long time, and then they sporadically came back. I think in the early 2000s they released a record, and then I think maybe 5 years ago or so they released another one. And if you can hear, we've got some revelers out on the street.
St. Patrick's Day is in full effect all around us right now.
Yeah,
Emmett's is up the street. We're on a corner that is on both sides being just. Paraded around. And on my way in, Mahoney's Bar over by Twisted Spoke, there was a huge crowd and line out the door for that place too. Jesus. Yeah, man, it's getting crazier as we go on through our streaming Saturday.
Yeah.
We caught the people getting up and drinking down the street earlier. We're in here drinking the Dropkick Murphy.
Yep, Barroom Heroes. This stuff is delicious, and it's a little dangerous because it's going down real smooth.
Quick. Yeah, I know. I was gonna say these are tall ones to be running through this fast.
Mm-hmm.
We also listened to a couple other ones there. We had an interim where my DJ skills messed up a little bit. Excuse that. What else did we just have coming through? We had one song from.
We had, like I said earlier, we had Jar Jar Jr. with Blau, and then Kojak with Crack Baby.
Exploding Head as well.
Yep.
The Sun. What's that?
That was Sunshine Factory with Exploding Head. That came out last year. That was on a EP, the Exploding Head EP. It was really cool stuff. Like I said, I definitely caught a similar spacey vibe that you're hearing on some of that My Bloody Valentine stuff. And, you know, that was really that whole sound. You know, we talked about, like, earlier hip-hop being, like, a Chicago thing, you know, with that shoegaze. To me, that really is British. And it's funny because, you know, you think about, like, you know, it's almost a Manchester, you know, related sound. But like I said, you know, it might be me being from across the pond and projecting a little bit, but I think, you know, My Bloody Valentine kicked that off.
It's real. And as far as like the As far as like the way they put it together, you said like it's kind of done in a Phil Spector wall of sound situation.
Absolutely.
But that was analog back then, which is way crazier than people who put it together on GarageBand now. You know.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we've got a think about the time, and it's completely pre-digital. So you've got, how are you going to layer multi-track guitar tracks on top of each other to give that really spacey, blurry sound? And I think that's what makes that record kind of ubiquitous in its sound. And it was absolutely lifting off of Phil Spector, but it was almost taking it to the next level, because Phil Spector would give you that wall of like guitar and that just epic noise, but you'd have crisp instrumentation around it, whereas this, it's like everything is like overtracked,
kind of muddy in the waters a little bit,
and it gives you a very ethereal, spacey, atmospheric vibe where you're not really hearing like the actual changes of notes. It just kind of flows in and out and moves around, and I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it does kind of put you in that trance-like feel, definitely.
Yeah.
You're gonna take us out of that trance-like feel right now. We got a few more songs coming up. Take us into them.
Yep, so we're going to jump back to America. So the next track we're going to hear, of course, we can't escape the Irish, overarching sounds too much. So we're going to check out some Flogging Molly. We're going to move it out of the indie realm and into a little bit more upbeat punk realm. So we're going to get some, this block actually has a lot of American bands that are very influenced by Irish music. So we're going to start it off with Flogging Molly, classic Drunken Lullabies off the Drunken Lullabies LP. And then we'll move on. We'll track around, and then we'll catch up on the backside of the music.
All right, man. It's kind of hot. Mouth Sauce Radio.
Take a life for hateful lies, take a lesson once again.
nature. I'm pure mortified. I'm pure mortified. I'm not mortified. At the post-punk election party in a country that has no use for an army. At the post-punk election party, it's enough to drive the whole place barmy. At the post-punk election party, look, there's end on the dance floor, and they're shifting the face of a red car in their own recovery position. Their own recovery position. On Friday, will they be so in love? Will they find the housing crisis cure? What makes it so obscure? I'm not so sure. Just grab the hospital beds if you found it, escape. Unlock the ghost estates and let the homeless move in. Just grab the hospital beds if you found it, escape. Unlock the ghost estates and let the homeless move in. For your sins, we were shot by both sides when Labour arrived. They stole all of Fianna Fáil's best smiles. There's Willie O'D jumping up and down on the parish pump. His public image is staring down a pistol. Give me some wisdom, Willie, give me some wisdom. I'll see you at my funeral. Look sexy at my funeral. Like a lunatic grinch, like a dog with two big keys. He's sporting a new mohawk wig. He once took 5,000 pesos from the back of a skid. We owe him a living. His pensions are so giving, we're the pennies to his ignorance. He oinks with belligerence and sticks smoke in his ears. He'll never hear you scream, he'll never hear you scream, he'll never hear you scream. At the post-punk election party in a country that has no use for an army. At the post-punk election party, it's enough to drive the whole place barmy. At the post-punk election party, Jerry Adams screams, I wasn't a terrorist. Look, that joke isn't funny anymore. Can you stand this heat? Do you need relief? Oh, the Lord is such a shore. Let the Gardaí come and arrest me. I'm nearly beat against security guards. Follow them around like a pack of hounds. They're just as scared as you or me. I'm dead, senseless, overflowing in my bed. Regeneration encampment. What a reach that would be good. We're prostitutes and then it's so bright eyes. He lurks in the shadows, sharpening his knives. Where the cracks in the pavement of their Silk Road. Hurdles they jump to keep their green afloat.
I saw a young girl on the road. I found her walking home. All through the dark and bitter cold, in the dead of night alone. She stopped me there in the icy air, and then she climbed beside me and asked me for to take her home. And she said her name was Mary. In the dark and cold, she was all alone. She was all alone and worried. In the dark and cold, she was all alone. And she said her name was Mary. All along that dark and lonely road, not a word at all was spoken, till she stopped me at Resurrection Cemetery, and the silence then was broken. and when she rose to leave, I touched her hand like ice, another bomb, and I turned to look, but she was gone in the dead of night alone. Well, in the dark and cold, I was all alone. I was all alone and weary. Well, in the dark and cold, I was all alone at Resurrection Cemetery. With Resurrection Mary.
Oh yes. This is Stiff Little Finger song. This is called Suspect Device.
Mild Soft live, St. Patrick's Day. Beautiful Saturday afternoon in Chicago. Been listening to a little bit of American influence punk in that last segment. So at first we heard Flogging Molly, classic Drunken Lullabies off their aforementioned album. Then after that we got into a little bit of a Limerick band called Post Punk Podge with Post Punk Election Party. Then we shot back to Chicago, back to the Windy on a beautiful fucking Saturday. Then we heard the Tossers with Resurrection Mary. And then finally, looping it back around to a band we heard earlier today, we had Naked Ray Gun doing a Stiff Little Fingers cover of Suspect Device.
Steve Breit always bringing it all the way around with a very, very tightly wound show.
I try to.
Yeah, we showed you the what is it, the Stiff Little Fingers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I was going to mess that up. The Stiff Little Fingers earlier, bring it back with the cover now.
Mm-hmm.
That was across the board. You said you didn't want to play too much Irish music, a little Irishy, like the stereotypical Irish music.
Yeah,
but we got into a little bit there.
It's hard to avoid, you know, and
the jersey on for
being
it,
a
so
lover. Yeah, exactly. And as with any Southsider who's worth his salt, you know, we have to defile everything in life with a little bit of green. So I've got my my new Blackhawks St. Patrick's Day jersey. I say new because it's my only green.
Well, I was about to preface that. Yeah, Steve wore a different one yesterday.
Yeah.
He's coming back with a new one today. It's like a whole section of the closet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is my beautiful green wardrobe that I get to pull out for one weekend a year. So it makes its full display.
Yeah, and you I know it's St. Patrick's Day today, but being a Polaki, we were talking yesterday about St. Joseph's Day, and that's a really important day. A lot of you probably aren't celebrating tomorrow. Actually, we all celebrate it in a very Polish way, I think, without even knowing it, is being super hungover on St. Joseph's Day.
Yep.
I don't know really any better way to, toast to the Polish experience than to just be super hungover and eating like whatever the hell you can fit in your mouth.
Yeah, so today is all corned beef and green beer, and tomorrow you got to pull out your red and celebrate.
Throw up all day.
Yeah, and celebrate St. Joseph's by drinking tzatziki and eating some pierogies.
Eating some pierogies and hoping you don't pass out before the day's over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some nothing like some Pedialyte and pierogies.
There you go.
We jumped through a lot. Naked Ray Gun, obviously.
So
quintessential Chicago band.
I wanted to loop back around. Yeah, so it was really cool that Naked Ray Gun, was doing the Stiff Little Fingers cover. I think, like I said earlier in the episode, there's a really great interplay. They're both blue-collar, working-class punk bands. They feed off each other. There's a lineage. You can kind of see that progression. And then with the Tossers song, our Chicago listeners, if they had the eagle ears, would get the reference. So that track was Resurrection Mary. So especially anybody growing up on the south side, southwest side, that's the famous ghost story of Resurrection Mary from Resurrection Cemetery down in Justice, Illinois. So another local shout out. But yeah, that's the legend that's been around since I believe like the mid 30s.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So as far as I recall it, there was a dance hall down, I think in Hickory Hills, the Tally Ho maybe. There was a dance club back in the 30s, and the legend goes that there was a woman who went with her boyfriend dancing out on a Saturday night, and they got into an argument, and she stormed off and was never seen again. So the legend is that these days, if you're driving down by Resurrection Cemetery at night, you might run across a spectral woman trying to hitchhike, and that is the ever-elusive Resurrection Mary.
I've read about that. Actually. Yeah, and like the old ghost stories online and whatnot.
Yeah. It's funny because Chicago has a lot of ghost stories around town. The building where the Excalibur nightclub used to be in.
Right.
That was the place that held the corpses when the Chicago hospitals ran out of room in their morgues after was the Edmund Fitzgerald that tipped in the river, or was that the
Oh my God, you're putting me on the spot and I'm messing it up right now because all I could think about was Lusitania, but it wasn't Lusitania. It was the
it's right on the tip of the tongue.
well. Yeah.
But anyway, this is exactly. This is one of many very interesting ghost stories in the city of Chicago. The Eastland. There you go.
I know.
The Eastland disaster. Yeah.
But
But yeah, so many people died in the Eastland that the Chicago hospitals ran out of space in the morgues, and they allegedly put them in the building where the Excalibur nightclub used to be. I'm not sure what club is there these days, if it's even open again
right now. Yeah, it was Castle, I think. Last.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean the Eastland, one of the stupider disasters to ever happen in American history. The Titanic sank, and they said we need all the lifeboats we can get, and then they packed this boat with lifeboats. And it flipped over in the middle of the river.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about. Every time you and me talk about this story, like, yo, dude, there was a cruise ship in the river that flipped over. What? I couldn't imagine. Like, obviously, the river's gotten smaller and they've added a lot of stuff to it. But it's like, what?
Yeah.
That doesn't make a lot of sense. Why aren't we doing that now? Maybe because of that. But yeah, you don't see people sailing across the Michigan anymore.
Yeah. It's definitely Chicago history, very interesting stuff, and true confession. I used to work there actually years ago. I was a bouncer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I've worked many a Saturday night at the that old building, and I have never seen a ghost, and I have spent probably as many nights drinking there as I did working there, so it was not completely inebriated the entire time.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel the ghost stories. I feel like it's what you believe in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's a bunch of bullshit.
Oh yeah.
There's people who just like to be scared.
Mm-hmm.
But shit, we're getting to. I feel like
We're getting close. We got another block, and then we can wrap it up. But this one I felt had to be.
Well, hold on a second. Hold on a second. I almost overstepped there. The Tossers. You were telling me about the Tossers a little bit, who we played earlier. That was an old high school friend of yours?
Not friend. Well, all right. So
someone you went to high school with, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the lead singer Tony Duggins, he was an alumni from Andrew High School. Actually, a classmate of mine. I wouldn't say that we knew each other intimately in high school, but we definitely traveled in the same circles.
That's dope.
So yeah. And additionally, that reminds me. On my, your memories in Facebook, how shit pops up every day. Today's memory that popped up was 20 years ago on this day. Apparently, I went and saw the Tossers and Murphy's Law at the now defunct Double Door. So
wow.
Yeah. So it's fun that we're talking about the Tossers today, 20 years to the day from.
Shout out anniversaries, man.
Yeah. So. Tossers, much love, Southside Pride. They're great. And we're going to move into another little section. And again, with Irish music, I felt this was a little bit ubiquitous and had to be addressed. So we're going to move into a little bit of a whiskey-themed block. And, to that point, let's see. I thought it was only appropriate to pull out a little whiskey. And I am not...
Might need y'all help.
Oh, there we go.
This man comes prepared, guys.
I did.
This man is about to pour up the whiskey. We're gonna check out these songs.
And we're drinking Jack Daniels because I do not have an affection for Jameson.
Yeah, well, you have a. Jack was putting some money in your pocket for a while.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Honesty in what we do. I used to work for Jack Daniels, so I have an affinity. But I was a drinker of it before, so.
If you saw any of that honey whiskey stuff, that was my man's right here.
Yep.
All right.
So
are we clinking this before we go?
Yes, we are.
All right. All right, to the whiskey.
Bottoms up. Oh, beauty.
Great. And without further ado, we take you to the whiskey block.
Or do we have any more?
As I was going over the Cork and Kerry Mountain, I saw Captain Pharaoh and his money he was counting. I first produced my pistol and then produced my rapier. I said, stand over and deliver on the devil, he may take you. Push your ring, dama do dama da. Wait for my daddy-o. Wait for my daddy-o. There's whiskey in the jar-o. I took all of his money, and it was a pretty penny. I took all of his money, and I brought it home to Molly. She swore that she loved me, never would she leave me. But the devil take that woman, for you know she 6 or maybe 7. In one Captain Farrell, I jumped up, fired up my pistols, and I shot him with both barrels. Mushering, dumma-doo-dumma-da. Wait for my daddy-o. Wait for my daddy-o. There's whiskey in the jar. And some men like to file and some men like to hear a cannonball rolling. But me, I like sleeping, especially in my mindless chamber. But here I am in prison. Here I am with a ball and chain, yeah. Much a ring, dumma-doo-dumma-da. Wait for my daddy-o. Wait for my daddy-o. There's whiskey in the jar. And I got drunk on whiskey-o. And I love
Strange and Western. It goes like this.
At the end of my whiskey it's my bonny lass. Her blue eyes are shining from the dawn to the tea. But I'm happiest just drinking my whiskey all day. Now she takes me aside, says I'm no fit for work, that I'll no give up drinking and I'll no go to church, but I'll reel in the heather with a bottle in my hand, and I'll preach about drinking to the people of this land. My passion for whiskey has lost me my wife. Without drinking and singing to hell with this life. Some people may say that the bottle be damned, but you'll no catch the bottle in another man's hand. Some people may say that the bottle be damned, but you'll no catch the bottle in another man's hand. Some people may say that the bottle be damned, but you'll no catch the bottle in another man's hand. Some people may say
All right, we're back, and that was our little whiskey block. So, you know, we heard, obviously, swinging around all over, we heard Thin Lizzy out of Dublin with Whiskey in the Jar. Then we heard Shane MacGowan and the Popes. You know, I thought it was, you could play, you know, Shane MacGowan straight with the Pogues, or you could get drunk and surly Shane MacGowan with the Popes, and that's what I went with. So we heard Streams of Whiskey off of their Glasgow 97 live bootleg, if I'm not mistaken. And then we... Yep, and then bringing it back to Chicago, we heard a little bit of Murder, Inc. with Miss Whiskey Name. Now...
For those of you listening to Mild Sauce Radio, it's not the Murder Inc. you're thinking of.
Nope.
That's a different Murder Inc. Murder Inc. from Ireland.
No, well, this is Murder Inc. from Chicago with a Scottish singer singing an Irish song.
So very similar to the Murder Inc. we also know Ja Rule, Gotti, Conti.
Yeah, absolutely. Right in the pocket.
Murder Inc. is an all-encompassing title.
Mm-hmm.
But shit, man, no, we got a lot of Irish in us.
Yeah. Yeah.
You met, like, I'm not going to talk anymore. You hit me with a shot in the middle of the show. So I'm pretty much blasted over here. But take us out, man.
All right, so,
Take us out, my man.
you know, always, as always, shout out to the three-piece in the mornings.
He's killing it.
Absolutely.
And Ron Andrews.
Great fucking listening to them every week. They're always entertaining. And then shout out to the Backcourt, which is on location out of town today. So we're not...
Through 314 Twins, the intersection of music here in Chicago is kind of...
Mm-hmm. And to bring us out for the afternoon, I wanted to switch things up again, give everybody a little bit of whiplash. So we're going to be checking out a band called Killer Instinct out of Dublin. And they are a Dublin dark wave band in the same vein as Survive, you know, the band that does all the music for Stranger Things, you know, or or Gunship, you know, that dark wave sound that's been building up again out of Austin, Texas. So it's cool to see American vibe kicking back out to Ireland.
And Steve keeps a tight show in all the city, man. He's like to Austin, Texas on the last day of South by Southwest.
Yep.
And this has been the Steve Breit Rock Discovery Show. This is your man Steve Breit right here. And we'll be back again next week on Saturday at 2 p.m.
Yep, mild sauce. It's kind of hot. Cheers.
feet of San Danico.